Hello everyone, I'm your host for today's weekly Modcast. I'm Mod Acorn, and with me is Mod Arcane.
Hi.
Mod Husky.
Hey.
Mod Sween.
Hello.
And behind the scenes, we have our live stream producer, Mod Spear, who's making this live from his home to yours. And on the Twitch chat is Mod Tide. If you have any questions in the Twitch chat, please make sure to tag @JagXTide so that he can put them on the doc for me. So thank you guys. Before we start, we've got a few announcements, so I'm just going to read off just a few. If you haven't noticed, Twitch Prime is live. It's 14 days free membership for Twitch Prime subscribers, so you can find out more by using the !Prime command. We also have Deadman mode, or DMM, that is currently live, and the finale is this Saturday. So we want you to tune in and watch. Let's see the top 2K compete to the 1v1s. You can find out more information about timings with the !DMM command. Darkmeyer is also coming. Woo! You can see it in our live stream with the little. No one else is excited? No? No? You guys are laughing about it.
I think I'm more relieved than anything. It's more like, oh, it's finally coming out, you know?
Darkmeyer is coming out next Thursday, June 4th. And we've got a few competitions running right now. We actually have a poll live right now in the game for the login screen competition, in which our players have designed some login screens around Darkmeyer theme. We are closing this poll on the Friday, so make sure you go out and vote. I think it's really tough competition this year. I think when we were going through it, when we rated them internally between all of us, the points between them was like 0.04 point rating. So it is really close. Find out more information about Darkmeyer using the !Darkmeyer command. And also we've got the Gillinor Gazette, the May edition, is live. So that includes some updates on Death, Leagues too, including our thought process on the ones that we did or did not go through and why we didn't go through with them. And it also gives you an update on who's who in the team. So our team is growing, and we want you to be in the know of who they are, what they do, and how they help contribute to Old School. I think that's all of them. Did I miss anything?
No, but just to kind of clarify some DMM stuff, the game worlds will close with tomorrow's game update. That's 11:30 a.m. BST. There was some issues with time zone conversion, but in the news post you'll read when you hit !DMM, the time zones are now fixed. It's 11:30 a.m. BST. The players won't be able to access the DMM world until we flag the accounts and allowed access again, which isn't going to happen until Friday, I believe. No, Saturday, until Saturday afternoon. But the news post has all the information you need. We fixed the error, so really sorry for that one.
Cool. So we'll start off with the basic introductions to get ourselves into the questions, and then after that we'll follow shortly into some of the remainder of the Poll 71 questions that we missed from last live stream. Then we'll talk about a little bit about the partnership survey and Darkmeyer before we feed into our overall miscellaneous questions that contain all the questions that you guys have been asking us for the past 2 or 3 weeks. So, how is everyone today?
I'm good. Yeah, pretty tired, actually. Long weekend. Still recovering.
Yeah, I was fine until Twitch chat just started roasting my haircut, the entire time, which has been fun. I decided to try and cut it myself. It went badly, and the girlfriend trying to fix it. So this is why it kind of looks like a bowl cut, but it's better than what it was, which was all patchy and horrible. So yeah, I just can't wait until the barbers open up again and I can finally get a proper haircut. So yes, guys, I'm aware. Very good, very funny.
You could say you're channeling Ronan.
in a Ronan, you know.
You remind me of the basic monk RPG classes you choose when you start like a new campaign on a
Yep.
game.
Yep.
Alright, man. That's what I'm saying. Covers that stuff right up. I'm
Hey,
good.
hey. I don't think anyone can say anything about haircuts. Like, I bet all the people at chat at home haven't had a haircut in months either, so, you know.
Yeah, I'm good. Obviously, we had a bank holiday on Monday, so rather than it being like a nice day off, it was, but it also means that we have to try and cram the rest of the work week into the shorter week. I think we're getting like too many calls and meetings at the moment, so not enough time to do, and too much time being spent talking about the doing. I don't think it's just an us thing, but I think other people working remotely or other people in the games industry as well are getting the same thing. We're trying to fix it. We want to make sure that we're doing stuff rather than talking about stuff all the time.
Cool. Yeah. I don't have the hair problem, so I just keep it long. Sorry. While Sween has to wear a hat and Husky has to deal with the clippers on his own. At least Arcane's doing pretty well in the hair department right now. Just give it a few weeks.
The barbers are still open near me, so I don't actually have the problem.
Oh, well, rub it in.
What did Morytania shaved his head? That's probably one to look out for. I'd love if we can get him to tweet it.
Did he?
Yeah, he did.
I want to ask him. I'll ask him later. Okay. What did everyone do this bank holiday weekend?
I mean, you ask me this every time, and it's always the same answer. played RuneScape, all of it. Although I did switch it up, because I did have a revelation where Darkmeyer is coming really, really soon, and my agility level was not high enough. I'm not proud of it. So I did agility for almost the entire weekend.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the same as Arcane. Played some RuneScape. Actually did some TOB with him and sniped a scythe, so pretty stoked about that. Seeing purples finally, luck turned round. Get to be a spoon for a change. But yeah, that was basically my weekend.
I did some DIY, which I'm proud of. Some gardening. We've got like a massive bamboo bush in the front garden. It grew too big. Like it was taller than our downstairs windows. Playing some old school, playing some Final Fantasy 14, playing some Destiny 2. Just playing games really.
Yeah, I did some gardening too, and leveled up my IRL farming skills. That's good. But I also did some chambers over the weekend and some. I say herb lore, but some people say it's herb lore, so I didn't want to say it wrong, so I'll just say it both ways. So I did that as well.
You drew attention to it. You just say it and move along.
I'm just gonna. If I don't, someone will say it anyways. So I'm just saying it as it is, both ways. Herb lore, herb lore. I did that over the weekend as well. Right. Let's move into the remainder of the Poll 71 questions. Mod Arcane. How do you decide what goes into the game improvement polls, where we have the poll 70, 71, 72, etc.?
So it's definitely not me. I'm way too new to be making decisions that are that big. But I do help. I did help refine some of the questions later on, since I joined towards the end of the process. But I did ask my mentor, who effectively created the latest poll blog, and she talked about how we do generally have quite a big backlog. The players have helped create as well. We've obviously we listen to you guys and try to figure out what things you like or don't like and things that should be looked into. And then we try and have a proper investigation on how to actually solve them, because sometimes a surface level issue is caused by a much deeper issue. So we try and figure out the correct way to address it. And then after that, obviously, we create a blog, then we get the feedback, and then we revise the blog, and then we give it to you guys as a poll, and then we go from there.
Anyone else to add anything?
No.
Okay. Quick, sweet, to the point. Go for it. That's fine. That's the way we like to get it done, because then we get all of the questions out there. So this one's for everyone, but we'll start with Arcane first. What would you like the focus of the next game improvement poll blog to be?
I'm really biased, so I'm just going to say PvM every time. But I'm sure there's some areas that probably should get a bit more love before we go back to that immediately, since we've just had a really big PvM blog.
I don't actually think we've had any discussions about what the next one's going to be, right? I mean, we've already decided the one after is full of memes, but
yeah, you gotta save Paul 73.
Yeah, I guess the truth is that we haven't actually gone through the backlog to see what jobs we've kind of got there, right? And that's what'll happen first, because I think people have the sort of thought that, like, oh, we're polling the things that we've already done and we'll see if they go in the game. No, we polled them and then the work gets started on it, right? So it's definitely got a few weeks worth of content for Arcane and the rest of the live operators team to work through.
Are you saying that you did not want all these gauntlet changes in because you were going for a Blade of Celador?
Hey, I've done my time. I've got my blade. I'm. Yeah.
What about you, Sween?
I think the last two polls, particularly the last one, was quite PvM centric. Not a bad thing. I think we covered a lot of issues that have been present for quite a while in things like Chambers of Xeric. We said we would continue to look at Grotesque Guardians. You know, we made the decision to pull stuff like the tradable dust from the blog. So I think once the update is in the game, we should look and see, did that have the right effect on Grotesque Guardians? If not, perhaps we should ask more questions in the next poll. But again, if it's fine, we don't need to. I don't have any questions from the top of my head, but I quite like the approach of, you know, sharing the love between, okay, cool, PvM, skillers. Maybe the focus the next one should be skilling. But obviously, it seems like a lot of our polls when it comes to PvM, we want to get rid of any obstacles, which usually results in quicker kill times or better loot. What we don't want to do with skilling polls is end up with like much faster XP rates. So I think it's quite difficult to poll that kind of thing. It usually tends to be stuff like interface work. Long way of saying I don't know, but it'd be nice to kind of deviate from PvM and offer something for other types of players.
I'd agree with that.
Cool. So what is the next update, Mod Arcane, that's coming from Poll 71?
So I recently went back into the backlog today, since most of the Chambers of Xeric stuff has been finished. So we should be getting that out pretty soon. But for the next batch of updates after the Xerics is most likely going to be Gauntlet. That's what I picked up today and rattled off a couple of the jobs. So that should be the next batch of Poll 71 content.
Yeah. So they can expect to see the rest of those Chambers ones this Thursday.
We should see almost all of the Chambers ones this Thursday.
And I think that the Gauntlet stuff will probably be at least after Darkmeyer's release, because that's right? It's the rest of the Chamber stuff this week, and then we've got Darkmeyer. So
we got Darkmeyer.
Everyone's asking why you're saying almost all of the Chambers updates.
Okay. So there's one thing that was so awkward to do. We just had to push it back. It was too scary, too dangerous. So we pushed this one job back. It was causing us a bit of issues, or specifically me, because I'm new and I'm not that good yet.
It's definitely not the ornament kit, is it? That's the one that everyone's been waiting for.
No, the Ancestral update will be out tomorrow.
Cool. So, Mod Sween, you have been quite helpful in giving some answers to some players already on Twitter about the partnerships survey that went out. But can you give some of the viewers an insight on what was in this survey that people were talking about, and who was it really sent to?
Sure thing, yeah. So yesterday we sent a survey to around 44,000 active accounts. We chose these accounts because they're active, and they're also the players who voted in last year's poll. So if you voted last year and you've been playing actively, you've probably got the survey in your account inbox, your message center. In terms of what we're asking, so you made it really, really clear that you're not interested in anything that will directly affect old school, like cosmetic or otherwise. We know that. But recently we've worked with partners for things like prizing, the 1v1 and the DMM events. So we just want to see how you feel about other out of main game experiences. Just for interest of transparency, full clarity, I'm going to read to you like the message we sent. So bear with me 1 second. Hi there. Last year, we polled a number of content additions that were tied to partnerships with other major players in the gaming world. The response was clear. You're not interested in partnered content that will affect old school RuneScape, cosmetically or otherwise. However, we do think that working with these partners would be a smart move for old school RuneScape's future. Partnerships would help us attract new players from larger audiences and build awareness of the game in spaces we don't yet reach. This is why we want to explore alternative partnership options. These might include out-of-game experiences, sponsored tournaments, or special events that won't affect your progress in the main game. We'd like to take this opportunity to learn how you feel about partnerships with a short survey. Ultimately, your feedback shapes every decision we make, so let us know your thoughts. So I don't want to keep reading to you, but I'll run through the questions as well, because again, full transparency, full clarity. So these are the questions we asked. Do you play any games that feature partner activity? And we gave the example of Death Stranding's use of Monster Energy drinks, Final Fantasy XIV's game content crossover with Monster Hunter, and any game really that gives loot through stuff like Twitch Prime. If you answered yes, we'll ask you which games. And then we asked you to think about the games you know that feature partner activity. Do any of those games use partnerships in a good and positive way? If yes, then tell us how and why, then we can learn from it. Then we asked you, how would you feel about partnership activity which does not directly affect old school RuneScape game worlds? Some examples of this could be access to events held on tournament or beta worlds with no progress shared to your old school profile, access into competitive PvM or PvP tournaments, or a free name change. And then we went on to ask you how you felt about the below examples of partnership activity. So we gave some examples and asked you to kind of say whether you approved or you disapproved. 1 second. So how would you feel about Twitch Prime allowing you beta access for game content like Soul Wars? Should we poll it and it pass? How would you feel about Twitch Prime allowing you to enter competitions to win merchandise? How about Twitch Prime giving you access to special game worlds which could have special tools for you to use, like a JMod's Rotten Potato? These worlds would be totally separate from normal game worlds and they're just for fun. How would you feel about Twitch Prime allowing you to change your in-game name for free, like how redeeming a bond does? How would you feel about Twitch Prime allowing you entry into a prize tournament, for example, a competitive PvP or PvM tournament? What about access to a special event hosted on separate game worlds, like Wilderness Wars? Then we asked, would seeing any of the above examples of these non-game affecting partnership content stop you from subscribing? Then there's a free text box where we say, hey, is there anything else you'd like to tell us regarding partnerships? And then we invited a person to contact us directly, or us to contact them directly rather, by asking them for stuff like their account RuneScape name, email address, or the Discord number.
So there's also concerns that because we are asking these questions that it might be this so-called slippery slope into MTX. Will this survey bring MTX into old school? Nope.
I'd say absolutely not. So the stuff we're asking is just additional stuff that doesn't touch the normal old school worlds. We had Mike D on the stream a few weeks ago. He's the new product director, and he said that we don't want to change our monetization model. We're subscription based, and I'm going to include bonds within that, and that's not going to change. What we're doing is asking you about types of partnerships that we think won't change or create additional monetization streams. They're just about trying to reach other audiences and bring those audiences into the current subscription model. I guess I'd say the days of TV adverts and commercials are long gone. This is the kind of marketing activity that most other games do, and we want to see what we can do that works. That's all it is. I saw a few comments saying we're trying to sneak this in. I'd hardly call it sneaking when we're sending stuff to 44,000 players, 75% of which voted no last time. We're just interested in learning. Last time you said no to anything cosmetic. I say, okay, cool. How do you feel about stuff that doesn't really impact the actual game? Can we do that? That's what the survey is for.
So what's the next step? So we sent the survey out, and so we're going to get results. What's the next steps? Will we share those results with the players?
I'd like to. I'd love to. So we've also got the annual survey that's still running. I don't know if the command's still active, but that's a much bigger, longer survey talking about everything like game content, how we communicate with you, polling and whatnot. And I'd like to be able to share the results of that too. So I'm thinking something like a joint, this is what you said, stream or infographic, or both combined, just to kind of say, hey, look, this is all the questions we've asked, this is how you feel, this is where we are, what we're doing with information. So TLDR is, yeah, I'd like to do that.
Cool. I'm going to go into some of the Twitch chat questions that Mod Tide has provided with us. And we've got one for you here, Mod Sween, that is asking if Jagex would... This is from Pornography. Oh, God. I can't believe I said that. Will Jagex be doing anything about the toxicity from Deadman Mode clans? And we would appreciate an update.
Yes, reading that question now too. So I think this is largely referencing the thing that happened that really flared up start of last week. The answer is yeah, we will be taking action. I'm not sure of the specifics, but it's either going to be like an account ban or disqualification from the actual DMM tournament, and then taking any more action that we need to outside of DMM as well. It's not my investigation. I know the question references mine, but I'm not leading it. I'm helping to advise and whatnot. And we won't be sharing actual specifics of that. I know back in the day, like 2002, the gal was used to say, hey, we banned like 100 accounts for macroing. But I think the reality is that we ban hundreds of thousands each year. Plus we've got stuff like GDPR. So we don't really want to divulge that kind of information. But anybody who's broken the rules like that, or boxed, or anything else we've disallowed, won't be allowed to compete in the actual finals of the DMM event.
Cool. So we were going to jump into the Darkmeyer questions, but some of the Twitch chats actually asked a few Darkmeyer questions, so we can go through those first, and then we can go through the other Darkmeyer questions. So we've got a question here, Mod Husky from Box Terrier, that wants to know an idea of what XP rates to expect at the Sepulchre. Just got 92 agility, looking forward to trying it.
Sure. So, as the players generally know, we have finished work on it. It's done, so there's no more sort of figuring out what the content needs to do for us. I suppose this player's kind of wanting to know at the top end, but it probably doesn't do much unless I actually go through it all. I'm actually going to... If you give me a second, I'm going to pull up actual numbers that I quoted to QA, because... If you ask another question, I'll come back to that, because I don't want to just give off the top of my head numbers that end up being wrong, because that's quite sensitive. The players, I think, would appreciate that. Cool. But I will look that up right now.
We'll jump back to you when you get that. So, do you have it?
No, my internet's just being really slow right now, probably because I'm on the stream.
Okay. So in the meantime, we can talk about the next question here, which is from I'm gonna read the name first in my head to make sure it doesn't sound bad. So Kilt is asking if we know the pet rate on the Sepulchre, and are you willing to tell them? Husky's thinking about it. Maybe his internet is down.
I can hear again. I didn't hear anything that was asked.
They want to know what the pet rate is in the Sepulchre. Do you have it, or do you know it?
Yes, I can get the pet rate. So I've actually got the XP rate, and I'll pull up a spreadsheet as well for pet rate. So you get one roll at the pet when you end the floor, right? And that pet rate is dependent on the floor level. It's generally slower or equivalent rates depending on to rooftops. I generally edge slightly towards slower. And it's definitely nowhere competing with the methods of getting it quicker, like Penguin Course. But right now, it's like, and this won't mean anything to the players until they see how long it takes to do the content, but it's like a 1 in 35,000 roll from floor 1, 16,000 from floor 2, 8,000 from floor 3, 4,000 from floor 4, and 2,000 from floor 5. Bearing in mind, like, a floor 5 completion will take like 9 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I've got here roughly like 300-ish hours to pet, right, as an estimation, which is, I think that's slightly faster than RD. I think ever so slightly. I don't know the exact efficient rates for that, but I know it's nowhere close to Penguin Course.
Can you boost your level to gain access to like floor 5, for instance?
No. You need the agility level to get to it. It's not boostable because the only agility sort of encounter that requires level is access to the floor. So it'd be pretty powerful if you could just boost like once every, like, 5 times every hour just to get into that floor 5. So you can't boost. And yeah, 10 minutes per lap is saying when you do floor 5, you've got to go all the way through 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if you got there with enough time left, you get access to floor 5. So that's kind of how the Sepulchre works, right?
Panic buy stands.
I know. As for XP rates, take these with a pinch of salt because we're going to be reviewing this post-release, and be aware that players haven't actually played this content to see exactly how difficult it is. The first few floors are fairly straightforward, but the last few floors to do this and get these rates should be relatively difficult and require at least hours of actually doing the content to get to this rate. Floor 1 is looking like around about 36k XP an hour, and that requires level 52 agility. This is also assuming no loot. I have to stress that. If you're stopping to loot coffins, it directly cuts your XP by a reasonable chunk. But it's about 36k for level 52 agility, about 48k 62, 55k for 72, about 66k at 82, and about 75 to 76k at 92. There is absolutely the chance that players will smash these XP rates if they have beyond the capabilities of what we have done in testing. But I've played this content a lot, so I'm pretty sure that the XP rates, at least for like flawless runs from 1 to 5 for hours of high concentration, yeah, they might push towards 80, but I'd be surprised if that could be kept up. And if they're just too high after the first week, we'll be looking to potentially hotfix or nerf them in the following weeks. This isn't something that we're not going to review. That's where it's sitting right now. It's very difficult. I think Arcane can attest to this, to do 1 to 5 without making any mistakes.
Yeah, you'll need quite a few hours to get to the point where you can consistently do the content with no mistakes. And if you make mistakes, your XP rate's going to be a lot lower.
There's a lot of people saying it's not over 80k. That's Mr. I said up to potentially 80k for flawless tick perfect runs. Potentially. No loot as well, so that's probably not even stopping to loot the Grand Coffin in the middle on the 5th floor. So there's a lot of like, I think when I was getting loot, I wasn't even getting 70k on floor 5, right? Like that's how much it cuts it by like 10%, if not more. But yeah, I'd say to the players to try the content first, see what you think for how difficult it is. It's not brain dead clicking a course that anyone can get like over 60k at RD. It's quite literally just I could do it on my mobile, right, without even looking while walking the dog. This is content where you'll need to be focused for like, for every second you're on those latter floors. So yeah.
With the Hallowed Sepulchre, there are a lot of rewards, things like the Hallowed Grapple, you've got the ring. So can those rewards be stored anywhere, or are they all just being, like, for instance, in your player-owned house, or even in a separate storage unit, like in the lobby area?
There isn't anything currently. It was a kind of low priority job that we just didn't have time to do before it got in. It is something I absolutely could see could be feedback that we would action in the first couple of weeks after release, to just have a little storage unit where you could store that stuff. But I think it's only like 6 or 7 items, so it shouldn't be too taxing on bank space at least. But we'll see what the players say, and that is something we could absolutely do.
Cool. So with the Darkmeyer update package, you do have a quest called Sins of the Father. Do you need to complete that in order to access the Hallowed Sepulchre?
Yes, you need to finish the quest. You can get to where the entrance is before quest completion, but we block access. We block access to the content until you've completed the quest. And that's part of, like, when we were looking and seeing, like, okay, what are we comparing, like, floor 1 to, right? Like, oh, Wildy, 36k is about comparable to Wildy course. Is that okay? Because that's in the wilderness. But this does require completion of a master level quest that, you know, it requires a considerable time investment for that as well. So, yeah, all of this stuff isn't just you get the agility level and do it. There's a whole series of quests to go through and other skilling requirements to get. I also doubt that someone's going to be doing it with just 52 agility. I think they're probably going to be higher by the time they complete that quest and general account progression.
With the Darkmeyer update, we are expanding Morytania with a big new area. Will that affect the diaries there at all?
Nope. Nope, the diary should complete exactly the same way.
Awesome. And we have a Twitch chat question by Nick, who wants to know if you die in the Hallowed Sepulchre, is it considered a safe death?
It is not considered a safe death if you die in the Hallowed Sepulchre. We're actually tracking it. It's very hard to die. Just it's interesting for us to track stats. You'll even be able to see the amount of times you died. Most of the traps in there, I think, cap out at 6 damage. If you fail on the further floors, it might be 7, it might be 5. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. And the Hallowed Ring itself got a slight rework from us, Paul, because we changed the content a little bit. If you have that, you take no damage from traps, right? It just teleports you in the nick of time and you take 0 damage. So it's going to be pretty hard to die unless you... I think you can get poisoned looting the coffins. You could take stuff in to lower your hit points manually yourself and die. But apart from that, like, it's going to... I'm not going to say safe, but I'm going to probably laugh at everyone who does die.
Really harsh. One last question about Darkmeyer before we move on to all of the questions that we've gathered from various like documents and Reddit threads and social. So you mentioned coffins quite a lot when you were discussing about XP rates. What are these coffins, and like how do you get hollowed marks? Because when you're doing rooftop agility, you can just see them appear on the ground, the marks of grace, and you just pick them up. So how do you obtain those? Well,
Sure.
the hollowed marks.
So every floor has a random path that you can start on. It's slightly different. I think floor 5 is the only one that only has one path. And on that path, there is a random encounter. Like, you'll be like one of 2 to keep an eye out for, right? So like one of them, it could be like the prayer encounter that's active, and you'll tell because the barrier will be different color and like flames will be active and stuff. And you'll be, oh, that one's on. That's my treasure encounter. And there'll be something you have to do to meet the requirements to get the treasure, right? You do that, you get in, you pick lock the coffin. Or it could be the grapple one, for example, right? So that people have asked me, what do you take in? And we mentioned the ranged encounter with grapples in blogs. So yeah, you'll probably want to take especially one of the rewards, the Hallowed Grapple as well. You might have an inkling to take a crossbow and grapple with you. But sometimes you just won't be able to click that pillar, right? And sometimes you will. You'll tell because they'll have a grapple option on it. So you keep an eye out for which one's active to you. You go across, you pick lock the coffin, and you only get hallowed marks from the coffins. And that's why I'm saying that directly impacts XP rates. Normally, if we'd had just left it as like a flat XP for floor completion, you'd get less XP because naturally you're spending game cycles doing something that's not actually getting agility XP, right? We further push that gap in the Sepulchre to separate out like going for treasure and not, make it a little bit stricter in that the XP you get for completing a floor is less if you take more time to do it, which is just like widening the gap between good completion times and not. It's not a lot, but it's just enough. So that's what I mean by like it'll obviously cut into your XP rates, and that's how you'll get your hallowed marks. If you like going for the treasure opportunities, the hallowed marks can be used to buy things that'll help you improve your success rate at these treasure encounters, right? So the gap will shrink again a little bit just by the overtime consistency of doing it. But that's how that sort of reward system works. You'll also be able to get like the strange old lockpicks as a chance on these coffins, more chance the further down the floors you get. And if you fail to get the lockpick, the average loot you get kind of increases as you go down. I'm not going to go into how that system works because that could definitely be something that gets a lot of feedback as player release either. I think roughly it was sitting at around 300k to 400k gold an hour, not including Ring of Endurance or Strange Old Lockpick. Just like the standard stuff. If you're going for it, that could be too low, that could be too high. There's always a lot. I kind of regret that we never got a lot of, with the whole COVID situation, players to come in and playtest this and get more opinions. So we kind of have to just do a lot of reacting to what players say within the first couple of weeks of release. But that's where it's sitting at right now.
Cool. I've been reading a Twitch chat at the time, and they're doing some competition to try to get Mod Sween to laugh. So they're constantly mentioning your hat falling, or it's very amusing. So moving on to our questions, we've got Batusi, by the way, who wants to know. We'll start with you, Mod Sween, first, and then Mod Husky next. What are the pet recolors? With all the pet recolors, can we also get the opportunity to get multiple of the same pet? I would love to have multiple colors of Zora or Rocky running around my house.
I'm not going to say yes or no. I would just like to see how players feel about, the method of obtaining the recolors. Because some are much easier than others. Like, look at the Phoenix recolors. Firelight is cheap as hell. Buy some, dump it into the Phoenix, cool, change color. And other recolors, like let's look at Metamorphic Dust, for example. Do players want to have like an extra grind to get recolors, or do they want it to be easily accessible? I think I'd like to understand that a bit more before we start saying, yeah, cool, recolor here, recolor there. Because otherwise, so you mentioned Zora in the example question. Would they want
that's what the player suggested.
So would they want it to be easily done, or do they want it to be like a separate mutagen grind that you have to use a mutagen to change the color? That's the kind of thing I'd like to know more.
Yeah, that's something I'm quite interested in as well, because even one of the rewards from the Sepulchre is an acorn, which you have to grind out for to get a lot of hallowed marks to buy it to recolor your squirrel, right? Is that something the players want more of or not? As for the opportunity to get multiple of the same pet, I wouldn't know without looking at how the follower system works, and how that would work potentially. I don't know. It's kind of like just one of those like weird flexes. Like I got multiple pets and I put them all in my house. Got like 20 snakelings running around.
So we'll move so that way we get as many questions asked and answered. We'll move to the next one. Leafy Shade asks, Mod Arcane, would it be possible to clear the best solo challenge mode raid time on the board outside of Chambers of Xeric? The best time is around 19 minutes from a bugged run, which will never be beaten by a legitimate solo time.
Yeah, this is in the current nearby backlog. So for Poll 71, whilst it wasn't necessarily polled, we do believe that this needs to be completely reset, and it makes sense with all the Chambers of Xeric changes as well. So there'll be more of an equal playing field after all the changes have come through to then reset it. So it will be coming fairly soon.
I look forward to seeing what the real best time is going to be. Do you have any guesses, anyone?
I've seen some sub-40s, so it should hopefully be faster than that consistently with all the new changes.
And it'll always get better, right? Generally, as more gear comes out, maybe there's a small niche for an item that even just saving like 10 seconds, those PBs will slowly come down.
Yeah.
Cool. So Gothic's Goku has asked Mod Husky, and then we'll go to Mod Sween next. Could bonfires be a thing? Scale it so that the XP rates are 1/4 the XP rates of fire lines, but scale up to 1/2 the XP rates of fire lines when other people join you in adding logs.
It sounds very similar to Wintertodt in just the playstyle the player's going through. There's a lot less. There's a lot less the aspect of killing the boss. Just the idea of putting it in. I get why the player's asking it, right? There is very much two ways to do fire making, and one of them costs a load of money, and one of them is go to Wintertodt, right? And about 99% of our players just go to Wintertodt. Fire making is definitely a skill that could see some diversity added to it, but I don't like that suggestion of just, hey, here's a safe way to AFK for less XP. Maybe we just need to have some more content with fire making in the future, like new training methods, right? There, I don't know, maybe fire making boss is the new way to go, because I guess the way to look at the Sepulchre is it was originally concept-wise as an agility boss, right? Where you were running away from a creature, but that wouldn't have worked with multiple people how I wanted it to, so it's just a timer, right? Instead of a creature chasing you or something like that. So, yeah. I think there's maybe that's the thing, right? Maybe you go beyond and you actually face the Wintertodt in its prison, and it's actually really dangerous, you know. That would be quite cool.
Cool. So Mac Beck is asking Mod Sween, in a previous live stream it was mentioned you'd introduce a boss diary. Are there still plans for this?
So just for clarity, do we know if the player is referring to like the PvM Achievement Diary, or is this something completely separate?
I'd imagine it was that, because that's something we've discussed quite frequently since RuneFest.
Yeah, it was announced at RuneFest, wasn't it? Ash kind of tied it up at the end of the other stuff we'd like to do. Yeah, that kind of project is still on the schedule. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't really established what it's actually definitely going to look like. So it's still there. I think it's still up for grabs as to what we do with it and how we steer it. Whether we want to make it some kind of like crazy bespoke, you have to do this in this way type thing. But I think we've seen with, you know, like the bounty hunter task, for example, that not many players actually enjoy being forced to play in that specific way. What I'd love to see from some kind of PvM Achievement Diary is, and I might get some flack for saying this, I'd like it to be used to onboard new players, as well as providing like an amazing opportunity and challenge at the end of it. I think the start of it should be looked at as something, ways to onboard players to killing different monsters and different creatures. Whether it's killing like higher level, well, different Slayer monsters at the start, or a boss you wouldn't normally kill. You know, we added Sarachnis and Obor and stuff as a way of introducing lower level players to combat, but they don't necessarily go there. But if we had it in kind of some kind of formalized achievement diary, PvM achievement diary, maybe similar to one of the adventure paths, that kind of working, it could actually become way more effective at introducing new players to boss mechanics and game mechanics without making the mechanics easier.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that just having those goals visible on a sheet in a logical order a player could reasonably tackle them on is a really good way to go about that, right? You know, I know Slayer kind of pushes people towards killing creatures in like a structured system, but I don't think it's the same as being like, oh, okay, I need to go kill these wolves, and you find some wolves and kill it, as opposed to even just at the beginner level, like if we had a really beginner, like even free-to-play tier, if that was a thing, right? Where it was like, kill a greater demon, and a player's like, what's a greater demon? You know, like maybe they go and find one, and it kills them, because like you wouldn't get that assigned to Slayer until you can actually beat it, right? And they're like, okay, what do I need to do to beat this thing, right? You just get those sort of like gears turning for like a new player, you know? And I know that everyone else in the game is like just safe spot it with magic, right? But there's that is still an initial challenge that everyone felt like a badass when they were casting their fire strikes at a demon and it couldn't get back to them, and they were like, look at me, I'm clever.
So, going to the next question, Hard K Rocks is asking Mod Sween, are you guys still looking at lowering the kill count requirement to be ranked on the high scores for Zuk, as mentioned in the April Gillinor Gazette? My friend is currently using this as an excuse to not attempt the Inferno.
I think there's two different things there. Firstly, you should attempt the Inferno anyway, regardless of the kill count being tracked on high scores. Secondly, I'm not too sure, but I'll try and find out. So what we noticed was the high scores were still experiencing quite a lot of load, issues loading, more akin to kind of what we saw at the start of the year, which is pretty crap. We think that's mainly due to the sheer amount of players that came in for lockdown, because in the last few weeks the high scores have been performing way better. But you go back like a month or 6 weeks or 8 weeks ago, they were pretty poor again. So I think we need to kind of keep more of an eye on how they're going to handle. There is like some sort of relationship between countries being in lockdown and the number of players playing our game. That's true. And then also further on from that is how well the high scores are doing. So I'm less inclined to start changing the requirements we set in place to rebuild high scores if we're still having issues with high scores. We're looking at longer term tech solutions to it. The kind of requirements we added was like a short term way of alleviating the problem, and it's been quite effective. So if we can do it, yeah, we should. Otherwise, it's probably best to err on the side of caution and keep the requirements we've got. But your friend definitely should try it, I know.
So Devon Owens is asking Mod Husky, could you add an unlockable temple spider task to Konar? This was a League's task, and it was amazing and would add some variance to Konar.
Sure. So back when the Fourth Oath Dungeon project was still being worked on, I originally had undead druids and temple spiders, which would have included Sarachnis as just part of Konar's Slayer list, right? You would occasionally get them assigned. I thought it was fitting. The Zaya Slayer Master would have tasks to these creatures. But when it went to QA, there was a lot of feedback that some of these tasks were just strictly worse. Maybe not Sarachnis. We weren't sure how Sarachnis would play out between how popular it would be and that sort of thing. But generally, like, it would have just been a worse to Konar, a nerf to Konar Slayer, which is already a Slayer Master which is trying desperately to compete with Duradel for like popularity with the players. So we would just be making that worse, and not intending to. I think having an unlock for Temple Spiders would be a great way to put that back if the players would like to. I definitely think that could be something that maybe even we put onto like a poll coming up to see what players think. I think that would be interesting for sure. I mean, it was on the original design of what I had, so I'm a bit biased, but...
So moving quickly on to the next question, Firelance is asking Mod Arcane, would you ever add a food that required over level 99 cooking to make so that a boosting item such as the Chef's Delight would be required?
So boosting in general isn't very fun. I don't think having an item that you want to craft a lot of them above level 99 where you'd have to boost would be a good idea. Maybe it'd be like this one time, or like maybe not one, but you don't need to craft 100 or 200 of them, right? Because boosting consistently to cook that doesn't sound fun for anyone, really. But a one-time item that you maybe want to boost every now and again for might be cool. I kind of like the idea of it as well, but it's quite a high requirement as well that you're asking people to have. So I imagine it would be quite powerful. It's kind of risky.
I do think it's weird as well to say, hey, you mastered this skill, but there's something you still can't do in it, right? Like that thematically maybe doesn't make as much sense.
Happened in Dungeoneering.
Did it? I didn't actually play a lot with Dungeoneering.
Yeah. I've got some quite like fond nostalgic memories of hitting like 91 and 92 herb lore and having to boost for overloads like back in the day. I mean, a lot of players now probably do. I think the most boosted skill is probably going to be something like construction, right? When people get like trying to save money. So I think adding a boost for the sake of adding a boost isn't probably the right way to go. And I mean, how good is the food going to have to be? Because if you're going over level 99, then that food's probably going to have to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So this question has been asked quite a lot on Reddit recently. Arctinkus is asking that's not a bad word. Why are you smiling? Is asking Mod Arcane, could the Shayzien Infiltrator in the Lizardmen Temple be given the dialogue of checking your Shaman kill count? Currently, the nearest way to go is to the canyon/battlefields.
Yeah, I do think they should be added. Completely. Most people seem to kill it in the temple as well these days, since the rework. So I think it's fitting.
Something for the backlog, then.
Or we go the opposite way, and he only tells you about the number you've killed down there, and the other guy tells you about how many you've killed in the other canyon. So you have to now go to both of them and add up the numbers, because how does he down there know in the temple how many you've killed in the canyon? You know, that doesn't make sense. I'm just
bring each other up. You know? DMM.
I know. Breaking my in-game immersion, you know.
So we've got the Infiltrator 12 is asking Mod Sween, thoughts on a wilderness boss overhaul. The way we fight wilderness bosses today is very strange and not in line with any other PvM content. The idea that we lure them to a specific spot just to whack them away safely until a PKO comes is bizarre.
Yeah, we agree. In March's, it was March's Gillenor Gazette, which you can find in the Old School News module on the Old School website. I don't have the link handy, I'm afraid. You can look at some of the ideas we had in terms of wilderness content and PvP. Like, they're two different things, but we attached them together. And one was some kind of, wasn't a very in-depth proposal, but it was at least, this is the type of thing we'd like to do. And we spoke about moving them from their current overworld place, perhaps to some sort of tunnel system. And we also spoke about making them to be, I'd say, less abusable, for want of a better word. Trying to fix those kind of bizarre mechanics that you mentioned. I haven't made any progress on that yet. I think I've seen a few work in progress designs and concepts from that blog. The main thing we've been working on is kind of building some sort of new wilderness hub, which is Mod Oasis has been working on. And the idea there is we're going to kind of have a centralized place, similar to how the Clan Wars lobby used to be, like back in the day. And that's going to have a kind of access to like a bank, access to Clan Wars, access to Last Man Standing, that kind of thing. So from that March Gillenor Gazette article, that has been one of our focuses, outside of the 1v1 tournament and DMM tournament that's ongoing currently. The plan is to have a kind of PvP and wilderness roadmap follow-up in next month's Gazette in a few weeks' time.
Cool. So Tom W2308 is asking, Mod Arcane, could brine rats and sulphur lizards get superiors? With us polling worms, drakes, hydras, and turrets, this would round the list off nicely.
I do agree, it rounded off quite nicely, and I have quite a cool idea for the brine rat one. I can just imagine this terrifyingly huge, ugly rat in your face. I think that'd be quite fitting. Sulphur lizards, though, I think they're too small and cute. I don't think that's appropriate. I think it should stay like that.
What if it gets even smaller and cuter?
Superior. That's what makes it superior.
So we'll go to the next question. Ash100 asks, Mod Husky, what are your thoughts on allowing players with higher HP levels to benefit from more warm clothing slots in Wintertodt to balance out the difference the damage is taken? Maybe allowing for a scaled 1 slot per 40 HP levels would reduce the damage by 20%.
So yeah, I guess making it scale on HP is kind of like, if it's just that implementation, like maybe this is me nitpicking, it wouldn't affect low levels anyway because they're already taking 1 damage. So even if they could wear more warm gear to take less damage, it wouldn't matter. So it's kind of just a case of, should we allow more warm clothing to push past the existing so that it does have more of an impact at later levels, I guess would be kind of a suggestion. That's one way we could go about it. I know there is like in this famous backlog, there is a job that says address this issue, and I don't think anyone's actually touched it and come up with a good solution. We've talked about things like cold meters and how much of it, there's always how much work would the implementation be, and if we do this, is something else which the players would like more being pushed out to do this, right? It's never a case of being too lazy to do the work. It's saying which things can we work on that players would like most. And a cold meter rework would be quite expensive, I believe, to do that sort of thing. This might be a better idea, although I don't know. It is just kind of does it need to be easier? I guess. I mean, generally you can do a full Wintertodt game, and if you're a higher level with 99 hit points or really high hit points, I think there's probably a middle ground that it needs help, right? Because the high levels can just do 1 game, teleport to house, and get back in time, right? And the people in the mid ground who are maybe 50 to 80 HP are the guys that are struggling because they haven't got the tools to deal with having high HP yet. But they're also taking that more damage. I don't know. I think it's something that maybe we can talk about this, and whenever Paul 72 comes around. I don't know, RK. Maybe that job gets looked at to see if there's an interesting solution. This could be it. I think we'd need to look into it more to see what that would do, right?
Cool. So Cry Tyrant 7 is asking, Mod Sween, LMS seems pretty revitalized and alive now. Do you have any plans for developing it further? Maybe some new maps?
Yeah, that's something we'd definitely like to do. I've seen some really cool concept from, I think, Mod West. They're kind of collaborating with Mod Rock. One of the maps was like a burnt out look at Varrock. So like an apocalyptic Varrock. Looks really cool. I love this. I love the setting. Like something really recognizable. As for when we manage to get to it, I'm not too sure. We need to kind of put it into the roadmap of releases. Hopefully, we'll try and cover that kind of thing in next month's Gazette. We're also looking at other things like maybe game modes that look at specific account builds. Currently you've got the like maxed build, but what if we were to make pure builds or Zerka builds, that kind of stuff too. There's a bit more variety. We'd like also better matchmaking. Currently there are 3 types of play, like ranked, competitive, casual, or high stakes, whatever it's called. And you all go in the same lobby, the same pen. It'd probably be much better if we have 3 pens, 1 for each type, so then the matchmaking is way easier.
Cool. So I'm going to save the question for that someone asked everyone till the end. So Mayos is asking Mod Arcane, could Duo Slayer get reworked to like RS3 Duo Slayer? That means instead of both players needing to get 200 monsters each, it's 200 monsters total between the 2 of them.
I think that one change suggested is quite fair, but I think we'd want to give it a bit more justice than just that. I think Duo Slayer could benefit from a major rework and something that's actually desirable, but it is quite a hard thing to balance since we need to make it not abusable or anything like that, which could enable some builds that previously weren't possible. So it needs to be done carefully, and it's probably quite a lot of work. I've not looked at the system too closely myself, so I'm not sure how much work it would really be.
I think one of the bigger issues is people saying, oh, I got a bad task. Now I'm going to do this as a duo, and then I'm going to do it like twice as quick and get to my good tasks, and then go back to solo for those. There's a lot of ways that this... I'm not quite sure how we would go about a duo system. You probably need to make it sort of like each person needs to contribute, but then what's stopping people in alts, like just both, like, both killing it and controlling 2 accounts, it is interesting. I don't think there is a good solution that I've seen for it, but we're at least aware how exploitable some ways we could go with it could be. Because I've seen that discussion come up with the community a few times.
I love the idea of proper functioning Duo Slayer. I just don't know what that looks like in reality. Like a lot of people in the chat are already saying, it's super boostable. It will be, people will abuse it, people will boost it. I don't think there is any moderation we could do to solve that. So I don't know how it should look, but other games, if you think about how they kind of do the refer a friend system, and high-level players can start playing with their friends and helping introduce. That's where I would see the benefit of some kind of Duo Slayer system. But I don't know how to implement it properly.
Cool. So we've only got about 5 more questions left. So if you guys are cool to continue on and chuck through them, let's get them done. Next is asking Mod Husky, would you consider adding more rune packs to shops, mainly blood and deaths? The Iron Men use a lot of bloods on top weapons and barraging. Currently the meta for getting bloods on Iron Men is to buy them from shops, but they're in high demand and often out of stock. You can hop through the entire world list, but only come out with just a couple thousand.
Yeah, I just got a scythe at the weekend. Let's do this. No, but in seriousness, right? This is an issue that I know that Iron Men have spoken about for like a long time, right? Which is usually the Iron Man game mode sort of answer that most players would say is, well, just make them yourself. That's the point of Iron Man, right? But the method of getting blood runes is like, I think it's not even 2k an hour. It's really slow, which is that's like 600 charges on a Sanguinesti or scythe. It's so bad. That a lot of them do opt to buying them. Packs could be a way to do it. it's just I kind of would like that, because it's always the idea that I'm willing to spend just money to fix my problem, but that is also kind of not what the Iron Man game mode's about. That's what mains do, right? It could just be something that could be polled. It could be just more expensive than it is currently to just buy them in bulk. I have thoughts in my head a few times, like, what if there was a system where you could pay a shopkeeper like an extortionate amount of money to just say, hey, I want, like, 500k fire runes next week, and I'll pay you like 3 times the price, or something stupid like that, where you could just get some of this stuff, because I don't think anyone likes the idea of just hopping worlds, buying from shops for hours to get what you want, that being the best solution. And I don't think buffing the amount you get from Runecraft is necessarily the best solution either, because that would just tank the price of blood runes for everyone else, right? So I have thought about this. I don't know what the fix is. I don't know if it should be fixed, because it is strictly, right, an Iron Man fix. But I'd be interested to hear everyone else's thoughts. Is this something we maybe should look at? Like, so you can buy bulk, like specifically Death and Blood runes being the 2 main ones, I guess, that a lot of Iron Men struggle with.
Yeah, I mean, we've had that problem with a few things, and Shopmanscape is just undesirable. I think no one really particularly enjoys that. But it's really hard to introduce an alternative that's natural without being strictly worse, since buying stuff is always going to be quicker. Like, there was an idea about gold ore where you could mine it in the gold cavern in some sort of mini game or something like that, where you can mine gold significantly faster, and we could force in some blood rune thing like that as well, but it just wouldn't really fit very well, and it's maybe not addressing the problem directly.
I just saw someone suggest a rune shop in Darkmeyer with blood rune packs, which is interesting, but it's not something we're going to go with.
I gotta jump out for another call, so I'm going to say have fun with the rest of the stream, and I'll see everybody maybe next week. See ya.
Bye. We're gonna do this. We've only got 4 more questions, so let's do it. Even if Mod Sween is ditching us. Mod Arcane, could we get a speed running layout for Chambers of Zurich, so that Chambers of Zurich speed running community won't have to pay 3 to 10 mil for each scout? You currently can reset the raid in TOB, but you can't in Chambers of Zurich. This was asked by leaked data.
So this was something that came up for Poll 71, and we had some ideas in-house of how we wanted to implement it, but we couldn't come up with a consensus of what it should really look like, and it really required a much further investigation, since scouting at Chambers of Zurich is already quite a big topic. We do want to do something with it, and especially me personally, I'm going to try and undertake the design for that project and propose it to the team at a later date. And that should hopefully touch on this issue that the speedrunning community especially have. But I don't think we're just going to have a magic button that'll just give you a speedrun layout. There'll be a bit more around it than that.
And the discussion that we had to sort of flesh that out a bit more, right, came down to, yes, we could just fix this for speedrunning, and that's like, cool, you have a layout, there's no loot from it, you get to just speedrun, test your times, and that would keep them happy. But scouting for Chambers is a problem that everybody who does Chambers has to face, right? So is there a better solution for a system where, like, you pay money, and the more money you pay, the better the layout is? Or can you just say, hey, I want a 3-boss layout? Can you say, okay, now I'm going to pay more and get a 5-boss layout? Or however that works, less money for a bigger layout? I'm not sure what would be the thing. There'd be a lot more investigation into, like, okay, well, if you're just generally getting a sort of okay layout, like, hey, I'll pay to not have vanguards, for example, right? How in depth does the system go? And when it came to a poll, it came down to the fact that we want to do a lot of things for PvM in this, and this, as I kind of said with other things, would take a lot of time and be a huge time sink for something that we did. Like, we need to go and sit and design that, and we said we just peg it for later once we know what that design looks like, and try and focus on getting out some things that the players actually do want. We know that we can definitely provide solutions for. So yeah, that's the answer. We just don't know what that looks like yet.
Someone in the Twitch chat is suggesting a block list similar to Slayer. I think we went frozen again. Question. Okay, next question. Kickthee is asking, Mod Husky can Pro Bitter have a check age option similar to Hans that would tell us the age of our pets as well as how long they have spent as our follower. And a follow-up question to that was someone was asking whether or not she could tell you what kill count you got certain pets on as well. Because a lot of people who get things such as a pet on kill count 1 might not want to do PvM anymore for that boss because they don't want to ruin what it looks like in their collection log.
Adding things like kill count to pets is something I've seen come up a lot. It generally sounds like one of those, like, sure, why not? But it's also like the same reason we don't give untrimmed skill capes or way to untrim them, because like it's really unfair to. It would come down to a poll in the community saying, right, is this something you'd be okay with us tracking the kill count if every pet you get it, but accepting that we don't do that currently. So anyone who already has a pet would either have to lose that pet and have it and get it again to have that number tracked, or they just wouldn't know. As for the age of the pet, I mean, that sounds like a lot of code running every server cycle to count every cycle that the pet has done. That's currently done by engine for us, for the player. Like the engine just records how long your play session was, right? And it stores that and or increments that, and we can get that data. But for content side, we'd have to actually have a variable and a timer running every cycle, every 10 cycles or whatever, to say, hey, add 6 seconds to that time, right? That the pet has been following you, or like since you got. We could date stamp potentially for when you got it, and that might be easier. Like the specific rune day that you got it, and yes, that's a thing we use, back end rune days. That would be a lot more manageable. But again, that falls down to the same thing as the KC, where we could poll it, and people would have to be okay with the fact that they wouldn't be able to see it for their pets they'd already got. And I don't think a lot of people would be okay with that.
It just seems like a lot of work when I think people would still be happy with just having kill counts, at least on the pets, more so than the age of the pet. I mean, judging from Twitch chat, that's kind of what they are suggesting. You mentioned Runedays, Mod Husky. Do you want to explain what that is to the Twitch chat that doesn't understand what Runeday is?
Sure. The back-end systems have a number that increments for every day since the game has been... I think since the game was created, it's up to like 8,000 and something now, which is crazy.
It's quite high.
And we can use that in code, right? We have a command to get the current rune day, so we can write code that says, like we were talking about things like Twisted League, right? Where we can say like, hey, let the login happen between these rune days, and after that rune day, close it off, right? You can't let anyone log in after that time. We can do like code like that. So that's what we generally would use it for.
Leave it to Oscore to complicate something as simple as a date.
Don't even get me started on the things that we sometimes have to deal with RuneScape.
So the Yeti Rider is asking Mod Husky, and if Mod O'Kane has some answers to this as well, could it be made so that we could feed our pets a certain amount of resource to unlock the Metamorphosis permanently and not have to feed them every time we want to change them? It seems annoying to have to keep feeding my pets.
I mean, it sounds like the person might just be really indecisive on which color they like the most. I think that's just kind of the idea that, like, they want a feeling of having unlocked them all, right? Which I guess the feeding method doesn't currently have. I don't know. There's no consistency with pets. We touched on that earlier in the stream. It's kind of just up to the devs at the time to say how they want this specific recolor to work. You say some of them it's a metamorphic dust, some of them it's a dark acorn, some of it's hey, just give it a dragon fruit seed, right, to get into the dragon fruit one. So maybe could be a nice thing to unlock it. It would require changing how that works with having it's different. It can't just be like a simple right-click metamorphosis like Zola. It would be more like bringing up a menu where you could pick which one, and some of them are crossed out, and some of them, like, it's not impossible. It would just be... I'm not sure that would be the cleanest implementation, but that might be the only way to do it.
Sounds like it's a problem for very few people.
I think so as well. I think the biggest offender is the Firelighters for specifically Iron Men, which is such a niche that to be honest, I'm not sure why an Iron Man would want to recolor their Phoenix a bunch of times and use all the firelighters they got from Treasure Trails. You probably just have a favorite color and you probably just set it to it, right?
You think about Groot, you have to give it a white lily seed. Imagine how many you have to stockpile on those if you want to like unlock it permanently. So we have one question here that is asked to everyone. So we'll start with Mod Arcane first. This is asked by Makalash. What piece of planned content gets the team most excited about and why?
The team? I mean, I've only been here for
Maybe just
like almost 2 months now. If it's just me, like I said before, like I'm a big PvMer, so I'm generally going to be more excited about that. Although it's been quite surprising to myself how excited I am around the Hallowed Sepulchre. I never thought I would be motivated to do agility in any world. So I don't know. I guess there's no consistency for me either.
I think every dev, and it's a shame that Arcane hasn't had a chance to really see this yet, I think. But when you've worked on a project for a long time, there is kind of a feeling of like, there goes my baby. I hope it goes into the world, and I hope that the players don't beat it up and drag it back to me, right? But you kind of put your content out, and you kind of really hope that the players enjoy it because you enjoyed making it and you want to share that around. For me personally, I think there's nothing that beats the rush, and this existed as a player, right? The feeling of new PvM content coming out where nobody knows what the weaknesses are, nobody knows the mechanics, and they're just going in on whatever gear, right? We're sitting here in the office and looking back at like, this guy brought a blowpipe to Nightmare, right? Like, that's not going to do very much in that fight, but it's fun to watch that. I think I've maybe lost that a bit as a player, but like, it was always fun watching anything like people doing the Inferno and who's going to get the first completion, and seeing teams actually wipe on Theatre of Blood repeatedly on stream, and who's going to get the first completion, and they got to 10%, and then they got to like 2% and they wiped, and it's great. I think like that sort of hype is something I like a lot. But after being a dev as well, I think questing feels a lot more exciting to me than it used to. I think because we know a lot of the behind the scenes lore and the stories and the things that are being implied that are not being told that we really hope the players pick up on, and I know some of them don't because they have a broken spacebar button. Well, maybe that's not the problem. If they had a broken spacebar button, they'd have to listen to it. But you know what I mean. You know what I'm trying to say.
I think we were talking about the other day, and we were talking about quests that Mod Ed has made, and we couldn't think of a single quest in which Mod Ed has made that is actually happy. It seems to be very negative and dark.
If Ed writes a story with a happy ending, I'm going to go over to him and ask if he is okay.
I know that both of you guys weren't here when Inferno came out, like working in the office, but I do remember when we had like things like Inferno and Theatre of Blood, we opened up the atrium, which is like, the big area where people sit down, like a whole audience can sit down in front of this massive TV, and we all just watched people like competing on live, like going through various live streams, and that's just like this amazing feeling of everyone just sitting together and on the edge of their seat going like, oh my god, are they going to do it, and you're just not sure. So that was really good. I imagine if when Wooks did the first completion for leagues for Chambers of Zerg, I'd imagine that would have been the entire staff sitting in an atrium watching it type moment, like with everything that he does. Let's be realistic here.
And I think, to be honest, I'm going to miss that, right? Usually on big releases, like with Darkmeyer coming out on the June the 4th, we tend to we have a big get together. Maybe there's cake going around, or champagne, and it's like, congratulations team, the launch success, people like it, good job. We should keep smashing this out. We're not going to have that this time, right? It's going to be, probably Ed, Philip, myself, Bruno, and perhaps any other developers who have hotfix access in a Zoom call, sort of going like, hey, has anything happened yet? Have you seen anything on social? It's gonna feel a lot less personal, I think. And I think that we're probably just not going to have that feeling of a big win. I think the day is just going to go on, and then it's going to finish, which is a shame. Can't wait till this whole situation's over.
I mean, like a glimpse into the behind the scenes of Jagex on the Friday is a company bingo event. So it's almost like a little celebration, if that makes any difference.
Oh, I just left the stream on a depressing note.
Yeah, you did. Okay, so we pretty much finished all of the questions, and we've gone through a lot. So I'll wrap up with a few of the announcements that we touched on since, like, anyone who's joined in, but continuing on. Twitch Prime is available now, 14 days free membership for our Twitch Prime subscribers. You can use the command !Prime for more information. Deadman Mode, or DMM, is still going, but the finale is this Saturday. We have corrected the times on the blog because there are some inconsistencies between time zones. So if you want to read those time zones of when the finale is, use the command !DMM. Darkmeyer is launching on Thursday, the 4th of June, so next Thursday. We have featuring some competitions, including the login screen poll, which is now live. We also have a story so far video, which we're taking submissions till the 30th. So you still have 3 days if you're going to come up with a video for us. You can use the command !Darkmeyer for more information about those competitions and the release. We also have released a Gillinor Gazette for May, and this includes some information about updates on death, leagues too, and who's who within the company to give you guys some insight about what they do, who they are, and what team they are. So you can use !Gazette for more information on that. And I think that is everything. I think I've read it all. So hoping to see you guys next week, and stay safe out there, everyone.
Yep. Stay